The ATeam, there's no I in team, but there's a T in team. That was a joke, Larry. But no, I remember one episode, Face Man was in a situation, he had explained it to the young lady. He said, when we were apart, we all messed up.
Picture this. For tough guys in a black van, fighting bad guys and saving the day every week. The ATeam was one of the coolest shows on TV in the 1980s. Kids everywhere wanted to be just like them. But what if I told you that behind all those explosions and awesome one-liners, the real drama was happening when the cameras stopped rolling? What if the biggest mystery of the ATeam wasn't solved on screen, but was actually about why the actors couldn't stand each other? Today, we're going to uncover the shocking truth about what really happened behind the scenes of the ATeam. Get ready, because this story has more twists than any episode you've ever watched. The real reason these actors left the show will blow your mind. Back in 1983, when the ATeam first hit TV screens, it was like nothing anyone had ever seen before. Every Tuesday night, millions of people glued themselves to their TVs to watch Hannibal face Murdoch and BA fight the bad guys in the most creative ways possible. The show was pure excitement. There were car chases, explosions, and clever plans that always seemed impossible but somehow worked perfectly. The ATeam wasn't just a TV show. It was a phenomenon. Kids played ATeam at recess. Adults quoted the show at work. Toy stores couldn't keep ATeam action figures on the shelves. The black van became one of the most famous vehicles in TV history. And who could forget BA's famous line, "I pity the fool." It seemed like the ATeam could do no wrong. But here's what nobody knew at the time. While the characters on screen were the best of friends who would do anything for each other, the real actors playing them were slowly becoming enemies. The brotherhood we saw on TV was just pretend. In real life, these men were fighting battles that had nothing to do with saving innocent people or outsmarting military police. The trouble started almost immediately, but it took a while for fans to notice. You see, when the ATeam began, George Pepper was supposed to be the star. He played Hannibal Smith, the team leader with the silver hair and the clever plans. Pepper was already a famous movie star before the ATeam. He had been in big Hollywood films and worked with legendary actors like Audrey Hepburn. He expected to be treated like the boss of the show. But then something unexpected happened. A newcomer named Mr. T, who played B.A. Baracus, started stealing all the attention. Mr. T was unlike anyone TV audiences had ever seen before. He wore gold chains around his neck, had a wild mohawk haircut, and delivered his lines with such attitude that people couldn't look away. Kids especially loved him. They started copying his hairstyle and his catchphrases. At first, this might seem like a good thing for the show. After all, if people love one of your characters, that means more viewers, right? But in Hollywood, popularity can be dangerous. When Mr. T became the breakout star, it created a huge problem. George Pepper, who thought he was a main character, suddenly found himself playing second fiddle to a guy who had never acted before. The tension between Pepper and Mr. T became impossible to ignore. On screen, Hannibal and B.A. worked together like clockwork. But when the cameras stopped rolling, these two men could barely stand to be in the same room. Pepper felt like his authority was being questioned. He had years of experience in Hollywood, and he didn't appreciate being overshadowed by someone he saw as just a bodyguard with a funny haircut. Mr. T, on the other hand, was just being himself. He didn't set out to steal the spotlight, but his larger-than-life personality was impossible to contain. The more popular he became, the more the network wanted to feature him. NBC executives saw dollar signs every time Mr. T appeared on screen. They pushed the writers to give B.A. more lines, more screen time, and more moments to shine. This created a vicious cycle that made everything worse. The more attention Mr. T got, the angrier Pepper became. The angrier Pepper became, the more he tried to assert his control over the show. He started demanding script changes. He wanted Hannibal to have the last word in every scene. He argued with directors and made life difficult for everyone on set. The other two main actors, Dirk Benedict and Dwight Schultz, found themselves caught in the middle of this war. Benedict played face, the smooth-talking con artist who could charm anyone. In real life, he tried to keep the peace between his feuding co-stars, but it wasn't easy. Some days, he would show up to work and find Peppered and Mr. T refusing to speak to each other except through other people. Dwight Schultz, who played the crazy pilot Murdoch, dealt with the tension by trying to make everyone laugh. He would do impressions and tell jokes, hoping to lighten the mood. But even his best efforts couldn't fix the growing problems between the show's two biggest stars. As the seasons went on, the behind-the-scenes drama got worse and worse. There were reports of screaming matches in trailers. Sometimes, scenes had to be filmed twice because Peppered and Mr. T refused to be in the same shot together. The crew started placing bets on which actor would explode first on any given day. The money made everything even more complicated. The A-Team was making NBC millions of dollars, but the actors' paychecks didn't always reflect the show's success. When contract negotiations came around, both Peppered and Mr. T demanded more money. The network was willing to pay, but this created jealousy among all the cast members. Who was worth more? Who deserved the biggest paycheck? These questions poisoned the atmosphere on set. Things got really ugly when Pepper discovered that Mr. T was being paid more than he was. For a proud man who considered himself the star of the show, this was the ultimate insult. There were rumors of Pepper threatening to quit if he didn't get a raise. NBC executives had to scramble to keep both actors happy, throwing money at the problem and hoping it would go away. But money couldn't fix the deeper issues. The show that started as a fun adventure about friendship and teamwork was now being run by two men who genuinely disliked each other. The magic that made the A-Team special was disappearing, and everyone could feel it. The problems weren't just about ego and money, though. The incredible success of the A-Team came with a price that none of the actors were prepared for. They went from being relatively unknown to being mobbed by fans wherever they went. The pressure was enormous. They had to be on all the time, signing autographs and living up to their characters' larger-than-life personalities. Mr. T struggled especially hard with this pressure. B.A. Baracus was tough, fearless, and always ready for a fight. But maintaining that image 24 hours a day was exhausting. Mr. T was actually a gentle person who cared deeply about helping kids and doing the right thing. But the public expected him to always be the tough guy with the gold chains and the attitude. At one point, he was hospitalized for exhaustion, but the studio kept it quiet because they didn't want to worry advertisers. Dirk Benedict had his own problems. As Face, he was supposed to be the charming ladies' man who could talk his way out of any situation. But Benedict felt like his character wasn't growing or developing. He was tired of just being the pretty boy who delivered jokes. He wanted Face to have more depth, but the writers were more interested in explosions and catchphrases than character development. Dwight Schultz faced a different challenge. Playing Murdoch required him to be manic and energetic for hours at a time. The character was supposed to be crazy in a fun way, but maintaining that level of intensity was draining. Schultz later said that he sometimes had trouble separating himself from Murdoch's chaotic energy, and it affected his sleep and his personal life. By the fourth season, the cracks were showing not just behind the scenes, but on screen too. The plots became more repetitive. The same formula was used over and over again. The team would meet someone in trouble, come up with an elaborate plan, and save the day with minimal violence. It had worked great for the first few years, but audiences were starting to get bored. The chemistry between the characters that had made the show so special was obviously strained. Even viewers who didn't know about the behind-the-scenes drama could sense that something was wrong. The playful banter felt forced. The teamwork looked mechanical. The spark that had made the A-Team appointment television was flickering out. NBC tried to fix the problem by bringing in new characters. They added Robert Vaughn as General Stockwell and Eddie Velez as Frankie Santana, hoping fresh faces would revitalize the show. But instead of helping, these additions just made things more awkward. The original four actors had spent years building their on-screen relationships, and suddenly having new people try to fit into that dynamic felt unnatural. The new actors faced their own challenges too. Eddie Velez later admitted that he felt like an outsider from day one. The original cast had been through so much together, both good and bad, that they had a bond he could never break into. Even though they were fighting with each other, they still shared a history that excluded him. Female characters had an especially hard time on the A-Team. Melinda coolly joined the show early on as reporter Amy Allen, expecting to be a strong female presence who could hold her own with the guys. But George Pepper reportedly didn't like the idea of sharing screen time with a woman, and her role was gradually reduced until she was written out of the show entirely. It was a harsh lesson in how difficult it could be to change the dynamics of a successful show. As the fifth and final season approached, everyone knew the end was near. The ratings were still decent, but they weren't the massive numbers NBC had gotten used to. More importantly, the cast was exhausted. Years of fighting, pressure, and demanding schedules had taken their toll on everyone involved. The final episodes of the A-Team were bittersweet. On screen, the characters were still saving the day and working together like the family they were supposed to be. But behind the scenes, the actors were already planning their escapes. Contracts were ending, and nobody seemed very interested in renewing them. When the A-Team finally ended in 1987, it felt like the end of an era. For 5 years, these four characters had been America's favorite fugitives. They had inspired countless imitators and left a mark on pop culture that lasts to this day. But the real story why the show ended wasn't about declining ratings or network decisions. It was about human beings who had been pushed to their breaking points by fame, money, ego, and the impossible pressure of living up to a legend. So what happened to each of the actors after the A-Team ended? Their post-show careers tell us a lot about who they really were underneath their famous characters. George Pepper struggled the most with life after the A-Team. He had fought so hard to maintain control of the show that when it ended, he seemed lost without it. Hollywood, which had once celebrated his strong personality, now saw him as difficult to work with. He appeared in a few TV movies and guest spots, but nothing came close to matching the success of Hannibal Smith. Pepper's health began to decline, and he passed away in 1994, remembered as both a talented actor and a complicated man who never quite found peace with his greatest success. Dirk Benedict took a different approach to his post-ATeam life. He embraced his status as a pop culture icon and had fun with it. He returned to science fiction with appearances in Battlestar Galactica projects and became a regular at fan conventions. Benedict wrote books about his experiences and wasn't afraid to poke fun at himself and the entertainment industry. He seemed to understand that being remembered as face wasn't the worst fate an actor could have. Dwight Schultz found the most success after the A-Team by completely changing direction. He discovered that his wild energy and distinctive voice were perfect for voice acting. If you've watched cartoons or played video games in the last 30 years, you've probably heard Schultz's voice dozens of times without knowing it. He also had memorable appearances on shows like Star Trek, The Next Generation. Schultz proved that sometimes the best way to move forward is to find a completely new path. Mr. T's story after the A-Team is perhaps the most inspiring of all. He took time away from the spotlight to fight a battle with cancer, showing the same toughness in real life that B.A. Baracus had on screen. But more than that, he used his fame to help others. He became a motivational speaker, encouraging kids to stay in school and believe in themselves. He never lost a sense of fun or his distinctive style, but he showed that there was real wisdom and kindness behind a tough guy image. The other actors who joined the show later had their own journeys. Eddie Valas continued acting and building a respectable career, even though he never escaped the shadow of his brief time with the A-Team. Melinda Cooley turned her early exit into an opportunity to explore writing, producing, and other creative pursuits. Looking back now, more than 30 years after the A-Team ended, it's easier to see the bigger picture. The show's success was built on the chemistry between four very different personalities, but that same chemistry became toxic when mixed with the pressures of fame and fortune. The actors were human beings with real flaws, real insecurities, and real dreams that sometimes conflicted with each other. The tragedy of the A-Team isn't that it ended. All shows end eventually. The tragedy is that the people who created something so joyful and inspirational couldn't find a way to be happy together while they were doing it. They gave millions of fans around the world some of the most fun television ever made, but they paid a personal price that was probably too high. Yet there's also something beautiful about the A-Team's legacy. Despite all the behind-the-scenes drama, despite the fights and the hurt feelings and the broken friendships, what remains is the pure joy of those characters and their adventures. Kids today still discover the A-Team through reruns and streaming services. They still get excited about the black van and the crazy plans and the unbreakable bond between four unlikely heroes. In many ways, the real A-Team story is about the difference between the characters we create and the people we are. Hannibal faced Murdoch, and B.A. were perfect teammates who never let each other down. George Pepper, Dirk Benedict, Dwight Schultz, and Mr. T were imperfect human beings who did their best under impossible circumstances. The lesson of the A-Team isn't that Hollywood is cruel or that fame corrupts everything it touches. The lesson is that creating something meaningful often requires sacrifice, and sometimes the cost is higher than anyone expects. The actors who brought the A-Team to life gave us a gift that has lasted for decades, even though giving that gift nearly broke them apart. Today, when fans meet the surviving cast members at conventions or see them in interviews, there's usually warmth and mutual respect. Time has a way of healing old wounds, and most of the old conflicts seem petty now compared to the legacy they all share. They may not have been best friends in real life, but they were part of something special that touched millions of lives. The real reason the actors left the A-Team was ultimately about being human. They wanted recognition, respect, fair treatment, and creative fulfillment. When those things came into conflict with each other and with the demands of a hit TV show, something had to give. In the end, what gave was the show itself. But here's the amazing thing. Even though the A-Team ended because of these very human problems, what we remember isn't the drama or the fights or the hurt feelings. What we remember is the excitement, the humor, the creativity, and the simple message that a small group of good people can make a big difference in the world. That message is still true today, and it's still worth celebrating. The A-Team may have been just a TV show, but it was also a reminder that heroes come in all shapes and sizes, that problems can be solved with creativity and teamwork, and that sometimes the best plans are the ones that seem impossible. So there you have it, the real story behind why these beloved actors left the A-Team. It's messier and more complicated than any episode plot, but it's also very human. These men weren't perfect, but they created something that brought joy to millions of people around the world. In the end, maybe that's what really matters. What do you think about this behind-the-scenes story? Were you surprised to learn about the conflicts between the cast members? Do you think the A-Team could have continued if they had found a way to work together better? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed learning about the real story behind the A-Team, make sure to hit that like button and share this video with other fans who might be interested in the truth behind their favorite show. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more fascinating stories about the TV shows and movies that shaped our childhoods. There are so many amazing behind-the-scenes stories out there, and we're just getting started sharing them with you. Until next time, remember that the best stories are often the ones happening when the cameras aren't rolling.